Shalom, and welcome back to day 86 of reading the Bible in 52 weeks. Woo! Lord, please guide me in your paths, in your ways. Guide me to your truth. Let us focus on you today. I love you. Amen. Let's go. Today we'll be reading 2 Samuel 4-6. When Saul's son Ishbosheth heard that Abner had died in Hebron, he gave up and all Israel was dismissed. Saul's son had two men who were leaders of raiding parties, one named Banat and the other Rechab, sons of Raman and Beerothite of the Benjamites. Beeroth is also considered part of Benjamin, and the Beerothites fled to Gideon and still reside there as aliens today. Saul's son Jonathan had a son whose feet were crippled. He was 5 years old when the report about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nanny picked him up and fled, but as she was hurrying to flee, he fell and became lame. His name was Mephibosheth. Rechab and Banan, the sons of Raman and Beerothite, set out to arrive at the Ishbosheth's house during the heat of the day while the king was taking his midday nap. They entered the interior of the house as if to get wheat and stabbed him in the stomach. Then Rechab and his brother Banan escaped. They had entered the house while Ishbosheth was lying on his bed in the bedroom and stabbed and killed him. They removed his head, took it, and traveled by the way of Arab all night. They brought Ishbosheth's head to David at Hebron and said to the king, "Here's the head of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, your enemy who intended to take your life. Today the Lord has granted vengeance to the Lord the king against Saul and his offspring." But David rewarded Rechab and his brother Banan, sons of Raman and Beerothite. "As the Lord lives, the one who has redeemed my life from every distress, when the person told me, 'Look, Saul is dead,' he thought he was a bearer of good news, but I seized him and put him in the death of Ziklag. That was my reward for him in this news. How much more when wicked men kill righteous men in his own house, in his own bed? So now, should I not require his blood from you and purge you from the earth?" So David gave orders to the young men, and they killed Rechab and Banan. They cut off their hands and feet and hung their bodies by the pool in Hebron. But they took Ishbosheth's head and buried it in Abner's tomb in Hebron. All of the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "Here we are, your own flesh and blood. Even while Saul was king over us, you are the one who led us out of the battle and brought us back. The Lord also said to you, you will shepherd my people of Israel, and you will be ruler over Israel." So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron. King David made a covenant with him at Hebron in the Lord's presence, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began his reign. He reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and at Jerusalem he reigned there 33 years over all Israel and Judah. The king and his men marched to Jerusalem against the Jebusites who inhabited the land. The Jebusites had said to David, "You will never get in here. Even the blind and the lame can repel you," thinking David can't get in here. Yet David did capture the stronghold of Zion, that is the city of David. He said that day, "Whoever attacks the Jebusites must go through the water shaft to reach the lame and the blind who are despised by David. For this reason is said, the blind and the lame will never enter the house." David took up residence in the stronghold, which he named the city of David. He built it up all the way around from the supporting turrets and inward. David became more and more powerful, and the Lord of God armies was with him. King Hiram of Tyre sent envoys to David. He also sent cedar logs, carpenters, and stonemasons, and they built a palace for David. Then David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel and had exalted him kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. After he arrived from Hebron, David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem, and more sons and daughters were born to him. These were the names of those born to him in Jerusalem: Shemaiah, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Chebar, Eshiar, Nephring, Japhia, Eshemiah, Idiah, and Ephilet. When the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel, they all went in search of David, but he heard about it and went down to the stronghold. So the Philistines came and spread out the Rephaim valley. Then David inquired of the Lord, "Should I attack the Philistines? Will you hand them over to me?" The Lord replied to David, "Attack for I will certainly hand the Philistines over to you. So David went to Baal Perazim and then defeated them, and then said, like a bursting flood, the Lord has burst out against my enemies before me. Therefore he named that place the Lord burst out. The Philistines abandoned their idols there, and David and his men carried them off. The Philistines came up again and spread out Rephaim Valley. So David inquired of the Lord, and he answered, do not attack directly, but circle around behind them and come at them opposite of balsam trees. When you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, act decisively, for the Lord will not have gone out ahead of you. So strike down the army of Philistines. So David did exactly what the Lord commanded him, and he struck down the Philistines all the way to the Geba to the Gezer. David again assembled all the fit young men in Israel, 30,000. He and all his troops set out to bring the ark of God from Baal Judah. The ark bears the name of the Lord of armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. The set of the ark God of the new cart had transported it from Abinadab's house, which was the hill of Uzzah, and Io, sons of Abinadab, were guiding the cart, and brought it with the ark of God from Abinadab's house, the hill. Ahio walked in front of the ark. David and the whole house of Israel were dancing before the Lord with all the kinds of fir-wood instruments, lyres, harps, trumpets, strands, and cymbals. When they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah reached out to the ark of God and took hold of it because the oxen had stumbled. Then the Lord's anger burned against Uzzah, and God struck him dead on the spot of the intervents. He died there next to the ark of God. David was angry because the Lord outburst against Uzzah. So he named the place Outburst against Uzzah, as it is today. David feared the Lord that day and said, how can the ark of the Lord ever come to me? So he was not willing to bring the ark of the Lord to the city of David. Instead, he diverted it to the house of Obed-Edom of Gath. The ark of the Lord remained in his house 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and his whole family. It was reported to King David, the Lord had blessed Obed-Edom's family, all that belongs to him, because of the ark of God. So David went and had the ark of God brought up from Obed-Edom's house in the city of David with rejoicing. When those carrying the ark of the Lord advanced 6 steps and sacrificed an ox and fattened calf, David was dancing with all his might before the Lord, wearing a linen ephod. He and the whole house of the Israel was bringing up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sound of the ram's horn. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Saul's daughter Michal looked down from the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in place inside the tent David had pitched for it. Then David offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings in the Lord's presence. When David had finished offering the burnt offering and the fellowship offering, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of armies. Then he distributed a loaf of bread, a date cake, and a raisin cake to each one of the entire Israelite community, both men and women. Then all the people went home. When David returned home to bless his household, Saul's daughter Michal came out to meet him. How the king of Israel honored himself today, she said. He exposed himself today in the sight of slave girls of his subjects like a vulgar person would expose himself. David replied to Michal, it was before the Lord who chose me over your father and your whole family to appoint me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will dance before the Lord, and I will dishonor myself and humble myself even more. However, by the slave girls you spoke about, I will be honored. And Saul's daughter Michal had no child to the day of her death. Okay, guys, I will see y'all tomorrow for day 87. May you have a blessed day. Shalom.